Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. And today we're going to be talking about the XRP Escrow, part one of a multi-part discussion that we'll be having over the next couple months. So the XRP Escrow, 45 billion is locked up roughly in a monthly distributed escrow that Ripple manages after it is released. Now, what will be ultimately the outcome of this escrow? Will it continually to be released monthly? And this has been a hot topic of discussion for the last 2 to 3 years since it was installed in 2017 by Ripple. Now, with the SEC suit hanging over in the last month, it's been a very hotly debated topic. So what I would like to do here is compare the discussions that have taken place and some of the possible scenarios that have been talked about. And then I would like to bring to light one that I have not seen talked about very much, but I think is the most likely outcome, in my opinion. And I'm going to relate this to the Flare networks and how they have distributed their rewards pool of Spark to the F assets holders. So what they have over there is a general rewards pool that makes up 25 to 35 billion Spark tokens. Now, this is algorithmically distributed to all those who mint the F assets on the Flare network. So it is being distributed to those who participate on the network and bring value over. They're being rewarded for this, and it's bringing more value over, and it's keeping it there. So it's a kind of token engineering. So you're influencing the behavior of the participants on the network and rewarding them for doing so. So now we have this escrow on the XRP Ledger, which Ripple has used to incentivize liquidity and the market makers to help ramp up ODL and to get it going. And now that ODL has been established, what else can be done with this 45 billion? Because many of us have looked at Ripple like a central bank. And I think that honestly is the wrong way that we should be looking at the escrow. It's just easy to look at it like that because we're used to looking at central banks and they deal with monetary policies. And that's what we're familiar with. But that's not what these decentralized networks and protocols are like. You don't have a central entity that manages a decentralized network. And that's one reason Ripple has caught so much slack, is that they have the majority of the supply. And we all could sit here and argue that, that was needed. They were a steward of this XRP to get the network going for the last 8 years. And I think we could all agree they've done a very good job of that. The SEC might not agree, but we think they have done a very good job. I think the numbers speak for themselves and how they've managed. But ultimately, this is not a long-term solution. Now, I'm going to go over the different ways that the escrow has been discussed and how it could be utilized in the future. So one is the burning of the escrow. That makes absolutely no sense to me. David Schwartz has referred to the escrow as the war chest and the strategic weapon. You don't burn that. All right? Two, second thing that's been discussed is Ripple keeps it themselves. That logically doesn't make sense because it's an oxymoron with a decentralized network. In long term, it's just not viable. It needs to be distributed in some way. Now, the third thing that's been discussed is you hand it over to the IMF, to the Fed, to the Treasury Department. That does not solve anything because now you're handing it to somebody who's not a user in the network, not a stakeholder in the network, and is another centralized entity. So you're recreating the same problems. These are decentralized networks that have completely different tokenomics, and they don't have a employment rate to go with. They don't have all the things that a sovereign nation does. So we shouldn't compare it to a central bank. So it makes no sense to hand it over to an entity like that that's not participating in a decentralized network. Now, those are the three that have mostly been discussed. Now, the fourth is what I propose here, and I think is the most logical of all the solutions, is you algorithmically distribute it based on the network and to incentivize certain behaviors. I'm not sure of what those behaviors actually are and for what reason, but I'm looking at the other 1,500 to 2,000 tokens out there and how they are distributed. And they all have some type of distribution method. And now we see Flare Networks, which is the closest network to XRP. Now they've created this smart contract that holds 25 to 35 billion Spark, and it's distributing it algorithmically based on those who mint the F assets. So why wouldn't we think that the XRP Escrow would be distributed in a similar manner? Why do we need to think that it has to be handed over? Why do we think that it has to be burned? Or why do we think that Ripple has to keep it? None of those are similar at all to what Spark is doing. What Flare Network is doing with the excess Spark on the network. Now, 5 billion of that 25 to 30 was donated by the foundation. 7 billion came from the Spark that was not given to Ripple and their founders. So now that makes up 12 billion. Now the rest is going to come from all the unclaimed Spark tokens that were not claimed by XRP holders on 12/12. So they have till 6/11/2021 to claim. Everything that's not claimed will be added to the rewards pool. And that's going to total roughly around 25 to 30 billion, because roughly right now there's 20 billion unclaimed. So now this is over a quarter of the whole supply. And when only roughly 5 billion or so are going to be circulating initially on the Flare network of Spark. So now, what is the value in that rewards pool? And what is the value in that escrow? Now, we've always looked at, many of us, and I'm including myself, has looked at the monetary value of that escrow and how it could be valued. You look at it as dollars. Oh, this could pay off debt. Oh, this could use that. But that's not the right way to think about this. It's how can that supply, which is seigniorage, be used to incentivize and grow the network and boost adoption and boost liquidity, per se, on the XRP Ledger. Because look how they're doing it on the Flare network. It's a perfect example of how to utilize the excess supply to boost the adoption of the network and to incentivize a certain behavior. And that behavior is minting of F assets onto the Flare network so that you're bringing over more value and then you're unlocking that value to be utilized in other applications on Flare while simultaneously rewarding those owners of those F assets. And now you could do the same thing with the XRP escrow on the XRP Ledger. Exactly how and for what reasoning, I don't exactly know. But I would have to guess what is the one thing that XRP's main use case is liquidity. So we just want to keep our eyes out for that. And I think we need to value the escrow and the rewards pool, not in a monetary dollar value, but how it could influence and boost adoption and the utility of XRP and the XRP Ledger globally. And this is a neutral asset. So it's not going to be backed by gold. It's not going to be backed by fiat, collateralized fiat. Its whole purpose is to have no counterparty and have a detachment from the traditional markets. And it's built on a decentralized protocol. One thing that is missing from the XRP Ledger is this governance structure that Flare Networks has. So once again, let's compare it to Flare Networks, which has a liquid democracy governance structure. So that means that everyone who owns Flare tokens has the ability to vote directly on governance proposals or to delegate their votes to an expert who then votes for them, or they delegate then to an expert on that. And I think that's very important here because it allows the network to manage the parameters of the network. So say the rate the percentage rate at which the rewards are paid out on the Flare network is managed by the governance structure. So everyone who owns a Flare token has one vote, where on the XRP Ledger, you don't have that type of governance structure. Now in 2012, it was very new. It was just Bitcoin, and they were building a network. So over the last 8 years, all these new innovations and technologies have come out, and now Flare is able to build this governance layer with the liquid democracy, where it's a balance between direct representation and direct voting, and then representative voting, where you could do either, and it includes everybody, not just the validators can vote. And I think that's very powerful to be able to manage a network over the years. So if it's 0.2% rewards rate on Flare, that could change to maybe 0.15 in 6 months from now, depending on the value of Spark. And the same would go for the XRP Ledger and its escrow that's released. A governance can manage that, but not a governance like the IMF governance, but like the network's governance, who are participants in the network and users. So I think we should really be looking in that direction to see how it could be utilized and how we value the escrow, not in a monetary, just dollar value of it, but how it can be utilized to boost adoption, create storage demand, drive liquidity. Because right now, as retail holders, we really only have speculation. We need utility, and then we need storage demand. With FXRP, we're going to gain both of those things. We're going to get the utility to be able to use it on the Flare network in smart contract applications, DeFi protocols, collateral debt positions, and it's going to come with yield, which creates storage demand. So people are going to be less likely to sell an asset that they could utilize in an app and earn yield on. Whereas right now, you just have speculation of capital appreciation going up or going down. But once you attach yield to that asset, it changes it dramatically, and use case and utility. So there might be utility on an institutional level, but we don't have that utility on a retail level. And we're going to have that with the Flare network. But you also have this escrow, 45 billion XRP, to be able to use like in a token engineering to incentivize behaviors. So it's not just a dollar value. You could utilize this to build liquidity further. And how do you converge retail and institutional? So this is where I think we should be looking over the next year or two. I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out.